the striking mine workers. CWA local president David Lehman has vowed to stand behind the UMW.
But we got people stand up here tonight and see the camo. I work for C&P Telephone Company. We wear red, and if you look around, you got red trade unionists, CWA members out here tonight to support the mine workers. We're going to be here. The CWA supports UMWA, and we always will.
The communication workers have been on strike since Sunday against C&P Phone Company. Also on hand tonight were members of a local theater group. The group has just returned from the British Isles and delivered a donation from Welsh miners and their families to the United Mine Workers of Southwest Virginia.
Charge. It stems from his participation in a sit-down which blocked the Moss No. 3 preparation plant last month. Roberts has said he's prepared for a jail term. He was convicted and fined for contempt on a separate federal injunction limiting strike activity.
A possible jail sentence. Good evening, everyone. I'm Betty Payne.
And I'm John Cleary. Thanks for being with us. The second in command of the United Mine Workers of America remains a free man this evening. Cecil Roberts, UMW Vice President, had his contempt hearing continued today after his attorney argued his client should not be charged twice on the same offense. The double jeopardy question did, however, give Roberts a chance to attack the system and a call for state government to intervene and end the UMW Pittston strike. UMW Vice President Cecil Roberts and 18 other United Mine Workers appeared in Russell County Court today on state contempt charges stemming from their July 25th arrest for breaking a court injunction. But Roberts' attorney argued his client was already being tried on federal charges with the same offense. The judge continued the hearing to consider the double jeopardy issue, and Roberts emerged from the courtroom blaming the system.
We will get a fair and just contract from Pittston, regardless of the system. If we must break down this system, we'll break down this system.
Roberts also says his willingness to go to jail should put the state and others on notice.
This should put everyone on notice, the courts, both the state and federal, should put the state police on notice, should above all put Pittston on notice that these people are going to continue forward until they win this strike.
Even though Roberts could still be jailed, he took the opportunity to tell the more than 300 supporters an end to the strike will need the assistance of state government.
Once again, call on Governor Balaus to treat the workers fairly here, that tax dollars should not be utilized and spent in a manner to break this strike.
Roberts and the other miners charged will be back in court August 21st on another topic. Among those who showed up at today's hearing were members of the Tackett Creek mine. The mine located north of Knoxville is Tennessee's only union mine operation. Miners are taking part in a 3-day memorial walk-off at Tackett in support of Southwest Virginia miners.
Cecil Roberts and 6 other International Executive Board members were given a temporary reprieve in court today. But those 7 and 12 more will be back in Russell County Circuit Court on contempt charges. News Center 5's John Mongo has more from Lebanon.
After a delay of nearly 3 hours, court was convened, motions were heard, and the trial for the union leaders and others was reset.
We will win this strike. We will get a fair and just contract from Pittston, regardless of the system. If we must break down this system, we'll break down this system.
Union lawyers argued that charges against their clients were vaguely stated, lacking the date, place, and county where the alleged offenses occurred. Lawyers also stated the defendants were being tried twice for the same crimes in state and federal court.
I feel like the judge looked at both sides of it today, and I'm sure he's going to listen to the arguments when they get back.
Although the cases have been continued and the defendants will have to be back here on August 21st, the union clearly sees this as a victory. The 19 are charged with criminal contempt in both state and federal courts for blocking the entrance to the Moss 3 preparation plant last month. Both the union and individuals in it have been brought into court for similar acts of civil disobedience.
This is not a law and order issue. If people break the law,
We expect that they'll be arrested and go to jail. We take great offense with the police and the courts standing squarely on the side of Pittston.
Judge Don McLaughlin agreed the charges were vague as stated and ordered them restyled. He will hear arguments on other motions on the next trial date. In Lebanon, Virginia, John Mongol, Youth Center for
United Mine Workers Union President Richard Trumka met privately in Richmond today. Trumka gave the governor an update on the status of the strike that began April 5th against the Pittston Coal Group. Belisle says the meeting was a productive one, but he did not elaborate. Belisle says he and Trumka agreed that the dispute should be settled as soon as possible. Trumka had requested the meeting, and Belisle says he would meet with Pittston Chairman Paul Douglas if asked.
Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia border were arrested after taking part in a sit-down demonstration on Highway 58. The miners are not on strike, but are participating in a 3-day memorial walk-off in observance of the ongoing UMW Pittston Coal Group strike. The Tennessee miners called the demonstration a warning, stating the problems facing the Virginia miners could spread to Tennessee. The men arrested will face misdemeanor charges for blocking traffic.
The sit-down demonstration near the Virginia-Tennessee line was no accident.
Workers from some of the area's biggest mines used the last part of their Memorial Day to show support for striking Virginia miners. The miners from Consolidated, Peabody, and Island Creek are not on strike, but they say acts of civil disobedience are the only way to speak out against Pittston and show solidarity for the UMWA.
We talked about a lot of places, and I said, hell, we'll just get it down here, and we'll stop the people going in Virginia and let them read those signs and see what the hell they're getting into.
Lee County authorities arrested 12 miners on charges of impeding traffic. The arrests went smoothly, but it wasn't easy on law enforcement officials.
There always comes in a time as sheriff that your job is unpleasant. Today it's unpleasant for me, but we're going to enforce the law in Lee County.
The whole protest was over in about 10 minutes, but miners say it was long enough to make their point.
We need more people to be exposed to what our people's having to be exposed to every day in Virginia. That's right. That's the whole point we're trying to get across. We've done it in a way today that I believe everybody recognizes it. Even some of our people went to jail.
The Tennessee miners say they chose this spot so people going into Virginia will know what they're getting into and to show the support from the Tennessee side. In Lee County, Virginia, Cheryl Munn, News Center 5.
Is dead. He is from East Tennessee. Prison officials in Pennsylvania say 70-year-old William Prater was found dead in his prison cell this morning. Officials say Prater died of natural causes. They say Prater's widow, Maxine, and 7 children apparently still live in La Follette, Tennessee. Prater was serving 3 life sentences for his role in the 1969 shooting deaths of UMW dissident Jock Yablonsky and his family. Prater was a union field representative accused of helping obtain $20,000 in union funds to hire the killers.
Sister Bernadette Kenny was all smiles today after U.S. attorneys dropped charges that she blocked the flow of traffic with her health care van last month. The state failed to prove that Kenny deliberately blocked a Clinchfield coal truck.
I gave some medicine to the lady who came across the road. She had asked me for it on the way down the road when I was going out earlier in the morning.
Kenny's attorney, Thomas Antonucci, said the case proves that mistakes can be made, and those mistakes can affect innocent people in the coal fields.
It is a shame that there wasn't more investigation of this matter done in advance. The troopers are under a lot of pressure, but she has been a month under the strain of a possible 6 months jail sentence, $5,000 fine, and her vehicle has been off the road and people have been deprived of health care. It is too bad that they didn't do that, although we're very grateful that the judge did what he did today.
Judge Jackson Kaiser told the courtroom he agreed with the state's decision to drop the charges because of what he called a lack of investigation and evidence. Sister Kenny's attorney agreed.
Notice that these 2 individuals were a trooper who was on his first day in Dickinson County and a marshal who was on his second. Neither of these people knew the territory, knew the traffic patterns, knew the individuals involved.
Kenny says she holds no grudges and that police, for the most part, have been helpful to her while she has been making her medical deliveries in Southwest Virginia.
With a coal truck behind her when she was arrested. She also was wearing a camouflage scarf, part of the uniform of Pittston strikers and their sympathizers. The prosecutors moved to dismiss the charges, When they realized they lacked evidence, the truck was affiliated with Pittston.
As the judge stated from the bench himself today, it is a shame that there wasn't more investigation of this matter done in advance. The troopers are under a lot of pressure, but she has been a month under the strain of a possible 6 months jail sentence, $5,000 fine, and her vehicle has been off the road and people have been deprived of health care. It is too bad that they didn't do that.
The nun was ready with proof the truck wasn't affiliated with Pittston. The truck driver was prepared to testify in her defense.
I was behind her. I was behind her on the truck.
Did you, who do you drive for?
Fred Angel.
No relation to Pittston? Sister Kenny says she was not intentionally slowing traffic, but easing over hills and around curves in a Winnebago, which serves as a mobile health wagon for St. Mary's Hospital. In Abingdon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News.
Were damaged by thrown rocks within a few hours today in Southwest Virginia's Coalfields. The Pittston Coal Group is calling it an extremely high number and estimates damage at $7,000. On the picket line, miners deny responsibility. They also say trucks moving on roads with the damage is evidence of biased state police.
If it's against the law for a UMWA member to drive with a cracked windshield, it should definitely be against the law for these trucks hauling coal in here from Pittston with smashed windshields. They should be against the law.
State police generally say when the windshield is broken, you finish that round and go back to your home base and get it fixed, and don't come back out on the road with it again. I mean, they don't make you pull off to the side of the road and park it. They let you finish your round and go back to your home base to fix it.
All the windshield damage occurred near Pittston's Moss No. 3 preparation plant. Says he's pessimistic about contract negotiations with the UMW. Pittston and the union expect to finalize terms for face-to-face talks tomorrow in Duffield. But Odom says the union is planning a rally in late September in Connecticut, the home of Pittston's parent corporation. He says that indicates the union has no intention of settling the strike. Jackie Stump, Virginia president of the union, could not confirm plans for the rally, but he says any such plans could be canceled if the strike is settled.
3-year-old Carson Mutter was arrested July 28th for throwing a rock through a window of a Pittston coal truck. The truck driver today identified Mutter as the man who threw the rock. The Commonwealth attorney also called the 2 officers who arrested Mutter, and they also identified him as the man at the scene of the incident. However, defense attorney Scott Mullins called several witnesses who testified Mutter was with them in another location at the time of the incident. As Judge Glenn Williams was about to decide the case, Mutter requested a polygraph test at his own expense. Williams agreed, but a date for that test has not been set.
Were destroyed by fire. The scales are located about 1 mile from Pittston Coal Company's Moss No. 3 preparation plant. Police report 1 mine foreman was injured when his vehicle was rocked after he left the Lambert Forks mine. In Buchanan County, Virginia today, 2 union members, Roy Lee Rife and George Cantwell, were arrested for failing to disperse and unlawful assembly. Approximately 200 union members are holding a rally outside the Buchanan County Courthouse at this hour. A spokesman for District 28 says the rally is in response to the unfair arrest of the 2 men. State police report the 2 vehicles, one belonging to a Pittston employee and the other to a Vance security worker, were burned last night in Wise and Buchanan counties. Also, 2 transformers at Lambert's Fork No. 2 mine were damaged by gunfire last night. Till next week between the United Mine Workers and Pittston Coal. But that makes little difference on the picket lines in Southwest Virginia. For the striking miners, the replacement workers, and the state police, it's one more day and a long strike. News Center 5's John Mongol has more.
Line can be disrupted quickly with a convoy of coal trucks and the Virginia State Police holding traffic. The police say they're neutral and they're merely maintaining order, but the pickets see them as squarely on the side of the company.
When you got state police escorting scabs the way they do, about the only thing they got the left to do is shoot us.
Just down from the picket line, schools are back in session, and that can be expensive even for families who are not on strike.
Financially, it's going to be rough.
Are they going to be able to make it?
Oh, yes. Back here in the mountains, we always make it. Because all it does, a friend let a friend know. We're going to let the government feed them at school. We can find clothes put on their back, and we grow a garden.
The resolve seen on the lines is matched only by the patience seen in the carving of a stick or a game of checkers. And patience is needed in this long strike. There appears to have been little progress made in resolving this strike that began April 5th. But the people here on the picket lines are quick to disagree.
We slowed the flow of coal down a whole lot.
But distrust still remains between the company and the union, and neither side seems willing to give. But negotiations will resume next week. John Mongol, News Center 5.
A Pittston spokesperson says the United Mine Workers
suspended contract talks with the United Mine Workers for 10 days, accusing the union of acts of terrorism. Pittston President Mike Odom said this past week has been the most violent in the nearly 5-month-long strike.
The union should at least be willing to denounce the violence and instruct its members that strike benefits will be withdrawn from those involved in the beatings and bombings. To do less would amount to tacit approval. Acts of physical violence and destruction of property by individuals and camouflaged battle fatigues are not acts of civil disobedience. These are acts of overt terrorism.
This week, a company office and scale house were burned, and company employees and their vehicles were attacked. No arrests have been made. Trumka criticized Pittston for suspending the talks. Trumka denounced the move, accusing the company of evading its obligation to try and resolve the dispute. In a statement released tonight, Trumka said the company has been trying to find a way to walk away from the mediation process.
5's Lisa Mitchell caught up with Roberts at a rally in Dickinson County.
The element in all these statements made by the company is to convince the workers that they're losing and that they're never coming back to work here. The workers here haven't bought that for 1 minute, and they're not going to buy it, and that's been very frustrating.
But what many striking miners and supporters have started buying up at these rallies are tiny little jack rocks they wear as pins and earrings. The union is accused of using jack rocks to litter coal hauling roads and disable Pittston trucks. Apparently, these are intended to make fun of the violence blamed on the union.
Yeah, I like that what you showed on television where we burnt the scales down, supposedly. The scales that were burnt down weren't even in use. They've been outdated for years. I mean, if we were going to do something, why wouldn't we do something that would hurt them?
With Pittston putting a temporary stop to the contract talks, the miners say they are prepared to hold out just as long as the company.
At a certain point in time, they'll lose so much money that they can't recoup it even with their changes, and that's when they'll start bargaining in good faith. But, you know, if they can go 2 years, we'll go 2 years in 1 day. We'll have a party on that last day.
Our people are still up. I mean, still real encouraged. Still got high morale, even though some of the things that the companies are doing, like breaking off the talks and things, you know, a lot of people say is, well, it's the company's little red wagon, they can push it or pull it, you know, whatever they want to do.
Union leaders say Lane Kirkland, president of the AFL-CIO, will be visiting the Coalfields on Wednesday. He's the latest in a series of celebrities who have shown support to the UMW during the strike. Union leaders also say the strike will soon be spreading to 2 companies in West Virginia and Kentucky that the union accuses of supplying coal to Pittston. In Dickinson County, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Back in court again today, Cecil Roberts was charged with violating a court order regarding sit-down protest in front of Pittston operations. As Mark Wildman reports, even though the charge was dismissed today on a technicality, the judge hearing the case was placed in a precarious position yesterday.
Cecil Roberts yesterday dared Russell County Circuit Court Judge Donald McLaughlin to convict him on a criminal contempt charge. Today, Roberts, along with 19 other United Mine Worker officials and rank-and-file members, were in front of Judge McLaughlin on charges they participated in a sit-down demonstration on July 25th. Among evidence presented today was a videotape made by Virginia State Police.
We felt we was doing something to keep Pittston from breaking the law, doing something as far as making a statement with respect to being in unity and purpose with the workers here.
One union official sees today's ruling as a morale booster to the union and its tactics.
He is showing leadership. Thousands of our members have gone to jail over this dispute, and it's just rightfully so that the officers also make their stand.
Negotiations between the union and Pittston remain on hold. Pittston suspended talks last week, citing violence in the coalfields. Corcoran is still optimistic about a settlement.
I've been involved in a lot of labor disputes and a lot of sets of negotiations, and things can look as bleak and as dark as possible, and the next day you have a contract.
On the Newswatch in Lebanon, Virginia, Mark Wildman, WKPT.
Strike sit in. The criminal contempt of court trial drew several hundred union members from 6 states to Lebanon, Virginia. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports.
Cecil Roberts went to court predicting he'd go to jail or beat the system. Hundreds of miners rallied all around the courthouse in support of him. Inside the court, Roberts and union executive board members snickered and giggled at a police videotape of their arrest played in court, and then emerged to the crowd during a break.
I thought it was entertaining. I thought that clearly when we were in the road, we were enjoying ourselves. We still feel real good about what we're doing, regardless of what this judge does today. It's immaterial what he does, because he doesn't understand. They're very rich and they're very powerful, very wealthy, never understand working class people.
Behind the courthouse, Pittston worker Ronnie Shoup, appearing as a witness in another strike-related court case, was charged with making an obscene gesture at a union sympathizer, prompting a sheriff's escort.
Man, he's a little stumptail thing, ain't he?
Just inside the door, miner Roger Davis was struck and swore out a warrant charging Shoup with assault. The Roberts case ended in dismissal, with Judge Don McLaughlin citing a lack of evidence. Roberts and others had been advised of court orders prohibiting civil disobedience in the strike.
It's strange when you psych yourself up, prepare yourself mentally to go to jail, and then find out you're not going. It's one of the strangest sensations that I've ever had in my life. It's somewhat disappointment, but an elation at the same time, if that makes any sense. And
Roberts' case is the latest of many to be dismissed, both nonviolent and violent.
As to use your phrase, I don't think they're outsmarting the state police. There's just a whole lot more of them.
In Lebanon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Court hearing in federal court
told them that might be counterproductive.
I said to them that we didn't...
MIAF represents more than 1 million unionized mine workers in more than 30 countries. The organization says it has monitored the strike closely, and efforts to form an international campaign should be stepped up.
We believe that we should step up our international campaign in order to get more support and solidarity for the mine workers organized in the UMWA.
General Secretary Peter McCallsick says he will put together a report to be submitted to the policymakers within the organization.
And as News Center 5's John Munger reports, today, a member of the Miners International Federation was on the picket lines.
The Miners International Federation represents some 2 million miners in 34 countries, including the United Mine Workers here. The group has pledged financial support to the UMW and promised to pressure U.S. ambassadors overseas.
We think that the pattern of this strike is out of the normal pattern we know.
Michalczyk says he's surprised at the state police presence in the Southwest Virginia coalfields and what union members perceive as a bias toward the company.
It is a case of that what you refer to as union busting. And this stretches over the boundaries of the United States.
United Mine Workers leaders find an irony in the emerging prominence of trade union groups in other countries while they're engaged in court battles here. Union leaders say that this strike counters an international trend of more worker recognition.
There's a real class war going on here between the very wealthy, the very powerful, the very rich, and people who work for a living.
No progress has been made in the contract negotiations that were to have resumed today. Pittston called off the talks for 10 days last week because of strike-related violence. In Dickinson County, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
Fields or not enough? That question has sparked a lot of debates, and one answer you get depends on whom you talk with. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell has the story.
Pittston Mine Shift Superintendent Robert Helbert couldn't find a state trooper for 6 miles when his vehicle was showered with rocks last week in a wave of 3 attacks from a crowd wearing camouflage. Helbert was hospitalized with mouth, face, and hand injuries.
I think the people ought to know that there's salaried people that are on the highway that are being mistreated, and they're trying to kill them. They tried to kill me. Salaried people are going to have to be more careful. They're going to have to be protected more. Need more troopers on the highway to protect them.
We're looking at other ways that we can help. We're also looking at, you hate to be simple about it, but what common sense things can we do to avoid it? Ride together, stay on the main roads, try to, as little as possible, avoid an offbeat route to work. As much as possible, stay on a schedule so that if the state police are in the area, they know approximately when you come through.
You have in Virginia now.
In Bristol, Republican candidate for governor Marshall Coleman has been confronted again by a group of miners and miners' wives with more complaints about state police being company biased and their numbers agitating the strike. A new concern is that school buses are threatened by coal trucks allowed to violate traffic regulations.
You were asking how you would feel if it was your youngins on that bus.
I want to be sure that the children of Southwest Virginia
Oh, I'm saying how would you feel if it was your youngin on that bus?
You asked the question. I want to be sure the children in Southwest Virginia are as well protected as the children any place else in the state.
Don't make me believe that.
Pardon me.
The purpose to welcome union leaders from across the nation. As Mark Wildman reports, these unions and their leaders today became a part of the movement against Pittston Coal.
The United Mine Workers last week issued a plea for help in waging its war against the Pittston Coal Group. Today, that plea was answered as 28 leaders from 13 different unions joined striking miners to voice total labor union solidarity nationwide.
And when Pittston took on the United Mine Workers, they thought that they were taking on a small single group of labor. And when Bell took on CWA and IBEW, they thought they were taking on a single group of labor. Well, today gives testament to the fact that they're never going to take us on alone again. We're in it together forever and ever.
Heading the brigade was Lane Kirkland of the AFL-CIO.
The question that every person must answer for himself, every person in public life, and every person in private life for that matter, has got to be, which side are you on?
Even today's torrential rains could not dampen the spirits of the labor leaders, nor the message they were trying to send to Pittston, that the union cannot be broken, and it's still strong after a nearly 5-month-long strike.
We're here to make a statement, and that statement is the entire House of Labor stands with the working class people in this area in District 28 in Southwestern Virginia. Are you ready to fight?
As with most courthouse rallies, almost as if today's scenario was scripted, police arrived and arrested the labor leaders involved in today's rally.
Proves that this labor movement's united and we're not going back. We're going to stay together until Pittston gives us a fair and decent contract, and all the labor movement's behind us, from the top down to the bottom.
It's worth getting arrested for?
You bet it is, every minute of it.
On the Newswatch in Lebanon, Virginia, Mark Wildman, WKP.
Labor leaders rallied in Lebanon. They rallied on the steps of the Virginia State Capitol this morning. Workers on strike at Chesapeake and Potomac Telephone Company, Pittston, and Eastern Airlines converged on Richmond in a show of solidarity. Eastern machinists and pilots have been on strike since March 4th. Telephone employees walked off their jobs 2 weeks ago. Pittston miners have been on strike since April 5th.
A major American union was arrested today in Russell County, Virginia. The presidents of the Airline Pilots Association, the Machinists Union, and nearly 20 other union leaders went to jail with United Mine Workers President Rich Trumka and AFL-CIO President Lane Kirkland. They blocked the courthouse in support of the UMW strike against Pittston Coal. We have 2 reports from News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell and John Mungle. First, John.
We welcome you to class warfare in Southwestern Virginia.
That's how the union has billed its strike against the Pittston Coal Group. And the message is apparently getting through, at least to American labor leaders.
Today gives testament to the fact that they're never going to take us alone again. We're in it together forever and ever.
Trumka, AFL-CIO President Lane Kirkland, and the leaders of 19 other major unions were arrested for blocking the courthouse. The charge is obstructing free passage.
There can't be any neutrals there. The question that every person must answer for himself, every person in public life, and every person in private life for that matter, has got to be, which side are you on?
Kirkland went on to say the company started the fight with labor, calling them renegade employers, and telling the some 1,200 rank-and-file miners they were striking for decency and American values.
The proudest day of my life, to be able to say that I lead these people.
The union leaders bonded out of the Russell County Jail shortly after the arrest, but they apparently will not face contempt charges since the demonstration did not block Pittston property. In Lebanon, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
What's going through your mind? What's going through your mind?
Greatness.
Hundreds of striking miners were cheering witnesses to the arrest of Richard Trumka and other union leaders. Lots have been in the same shoes, walking to jail with a police escort for the union cause.
It means everybody that the nation as a whole sees that they're a solidarity movement that's in place here.
We've all sat in the road and been arrested 2 or 3 times. It's their way of showing us they're with us. We're all brothers and sisters in this fight.
It shows that all labor unions now realize that for us to be strong, that we've got to band together.
It's a great sacrifice. I don't know if it's the ultimate, but that'll come later if it has to be.
It shows that they're behind us. They're not just up there telling us what to do and what should be done. They're out there fighting with us.
Solidarity, look around. That's what we're fighting for, solidarity.
This marked the latest of many mass union gatherings at this courthouse, and the second time in a few weeks that Sheriff Trigg Field stopped union sit-ins with arrest.
The whole thing's been a nightmare, and I'd love to see it settled.
Just up the street from the courthouse is Pittston's headquarters.
No, the gathering today is the unions getting together trying to engender sympathy for the plight that their unions are in. But it's a plight that the leadership of our union brought upon his own membership.
In Lebanon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
United Mine Workers and other unions demonstrated labor's national solidarity by participating in a sit-down demonstration and then heading off to jail together. Margaret Moore reports.
Today has been a red-letter day for unions everywhere. It all began in a protest in Richmond, Virginia this morning where AFL-CIO President Lane Kirkland and UMW Vice President Richard Trumka, along with many other union representatives, gathered.
They need us to believe that there's no connection between all of our struggles, because only then can they divide us. The separation is over! Solidarity forever, all the union makes us strong.
Kirkland then took the issues home to the Russell County, Virginia courthouse steps.
We're in solidarity and standing with you in this struggle for justice, for humanity, and for decency.
Here, Kirkland, along with other union representatives, was whisked off to the Russell County Courthouse jail for having blocked the courthouse entrance.
I think it's probably one of the greatest days in the modern American labor movement, with 20-some labor officials that probably represent well in the excess of 10 million workers throughout this country, saw fit to come to Southwest Virginia and make a statement in conjunction with the union's national call to conscience to the abuses that's being initiated by the Pittston Corporation.
Even though the rally was cut short, the point had been made, a point that will probably make its mark in the nation's history books. Margaret Moore, Eyewitness News 11, Lebanon, Virginia.
The communications workers.
A small single group of labor. And when Bell took on CWA and IBEW, they thought they were taking on a single group of labor. Well, today gives testament to the fact that they're never going to take us on alone again. We're in it together forever and ever.
Heading the brigade was Lane Kirkland of the AFL-CIO.
The question that every person must answer for himself, every person in public life, and every person in private life for that matter, has got to be, which side are you on?
Even today's torrential rains could not dampen the spirits of the labor leaders, nor the message they were trying to send to Pittston, that the union cannot be broken, and it's still strong after a nearly 5-month-long strike.
Stands with the working class people in this area in District 28 and Southwestern Virginia. Are
As with most courthouse rallies, almost as if today's scenario was scripted, police arrived and arrested the labor leaders involved in today's rally.
Proves that this labor movement's united and we're not going back. We're going to stay together until Pittston gives us a fair and decent contract, and all the labor movement's behind us, from the top down to the bottom.
It's worth getting arrested for?
You bet it is, every minute of it.
Eastern machinists and pilots have been on strike since March 4th. Telephone employees walked off their jobs 2 weeks ago, and Pittston miners have been on strike since April 5th. Has brought joblessness and loss of security to hundreds of miners. Under the leadership of Richard Trumka, Odom says the union has taken steps backward, and this backward trend will continue if bargaining demands are not changed.
Under Mr. Trumka's leadership, they've had massive job losses, massive erosion of market share. Their 1950 and 1974 retiree funds are in financial crisis state.
Odom also says the union must acknowledge it could be at fault.
In the Southwest Virginia coalfields, those reports have the union and the Pittston Coal group pointing fingers at each other. News Center 5's John Mongol reports there appears to be little the two sides agree on in the 4.5-month-old strike.
These are familiar sights on the coal haul roads of Russell County. Coal trucks, pickets, and the Virginia State Police. Broken windshields, flat tires, and heavy security are also more and more familiar.
The union is trying to make the public believe that there's no violence in the coal fields, and this is all a peaceful demonstration.
Violence is a friend of the company's. It helps the company, and it's violence baiting.
Yet every day I listen to reports and see it and have my vehicle robbed. Foremen get hurt, workers get hurt.
It's the same tired rhetoric we've heard on many occasions from the company.
I don't know of any evidence ever come out that we're rocking our own trucks or shooting our own people.
When someone is arrested and convicted, then we look at that individual that got convicted and say he's at fault, as opposed to saying, well, it's my opinion that the union's at fault.
The state police presence in the coal fields remains another side issue to the strike itself, but one both sides feel strongly about.
I haven't seen them escorting any of our people up and down the road to make sure they get to the picket line safely, which I would assume that our people are as important as they are.
The state police are trying their best to keep the amount of violence down as much as possible.
On the issues, the National Labor Relations Board has set an October date to hear complaints against Pittston lodged by the union. Both sides are claiming a victory on this point. It appears the only thing the company and the union can agree on is that they're nowhere near settling this strike. In Russell County, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
As a natural result of conditions in the coal fields. News Center 5's John Mongol reports.
For most of the nearly 5 months, the United Mine Workers have been on strike against the Pittston Coal Group. But supporters of the union say there is another kind of violence seldom reported.
So that you have cutbacks in terms of health and pensions. Those are violent decisions, violent economic decisions against people. And that's the violence that is never talked about.
Rang and others say this is responsible for most of the incidents that regularly make the news reports.
I'm not saying that it justifies it. I'm saying it makes it understandable.
It's not right. It's not what America was founded on.
The Lutheran pastor directs the Appalachian Ministries for Economic Justice and supports the union, and to some extent its tactics, because of history.
I'm talking about this other systemic violence that's gone on when those 124, 125 people killed in Buffalo Creek, and how many other miners besides the 7 who were killed in McClure 1 have died because of the policies.
It was not done with premeditation. It was not intentional. It was not an orchestrated event designed to injure and harm people.
Labor supporters say the rocks and jack rocks
break.
I wouldn't really say it's a hunger strike. We're just not eating the food here at the jail. We said we'd eat food that, maybe the miners could bring us, but we know the regulations. They couldn't bring it to us, but it's not what you would characterize as a hunger strike. We're just not eating the jail food. We have been, snacking on some things that we were able to purchase with our own money, like, cheese, crackers, or something like that. But we're all holding out good. We're in good shape.
Stump, Marty Hudson, and C.A. Phillips have been in jail since Monday. A judge says they'll stay there until they pledge to end their illegal strike activities. Trying to keep the calm on the picket line since the strike began more than 2 months ago. Police were ordered into the Coalfields by Governor Jerry Belials. That decision may rate as one of the most unpopular moves for his administration. News Center 5's John Mungo tells us about the politics and police on the picket line.
The United Mine Workers and Southwest Virginia as a whole are traditional Democrats. But that has not stopped the resentment of the pickets over the massive state police presence. To the union, the state police are the governor's men, and the only attention he has given to the strike.
I think the governor has ignored us completely. And the governor knows where we live at. The governor's been to my home. The governor's showered in my home and changed clothes in my home. He's eaten my food, and he's drunk my liquor.
On the other hand, the duty is not popular with troopers. It means 2 or 3 weeks away from home and family, but they are making do.
I think about everybody's glad to get home. The job from day to day has variety and changes.
The duty does not seem any more hazardous to Necessary and his fellow troopers than their normal assignments, but there has to be tension associated with the job.
His men had orders not to give no trucks, no citations for any violations of the law that they've broken. But at the same time, he told me that they had orders to give our people citations if they was called going too slow.
We're here merely as a quote-unquote peacekeeping force. It is such that most of the violations of the law that are occurring in close proximity to the trucks. And it's always a good idea to be in close proximity to where something might happen.
Neither the state police presence nor the political resentment are likely to subside until the strike is over and a contract is signed.
So where do you go from here? Lots of times the Democrat candidates didn't win unless they carried these coal fields. I can name them over to you.
In Russell County, Virginia, John Mongol, News Center 5.
Officials have broken off contract talks, and the company has declared an impasse. As we begin our week in review, Pittston President Michael Odom says the company will implement its latest contract offer. The company's declaration came just a day after United Mine Workers pulled out of negotiations with Pittston, a decision that seemed to have support on the picket lines.
Most of us, or the ones that I have talked to, feels like the company's wanting to do from away with the union.
Is that possible?
No, I don't believe so.
A Bristol, Tennessee
For orchestrating the United Mine Workers Civil Disobedience Campaign are out of jail tonight. The primary strike coordinator from Washington, Marty Hudson, the president of the UMW Southwest Virginia District, Jackie Stump, and UMW International Representative C.A. Phillips are expected to appear in federal court tomorrow. U.S. District Judge Glenn Williams says he released the three in the custody of a UMW attorney and that they will appear before him in the morning. UMW Vice President Cecil Roberts indicates the three will agree to obey the judge's strike restrictions and be freed. Roberts says the three leaders already demonstrated a great commitment to the effort by staying in jail 2 weeks. Judge Williams ordered the trio held without bond on June the 5th until they promised to end the civil disobedience, which is a rallying point for thousands of UMW miners staging wildcat strikes around the country. In federal court in Abingdon, another group of miners were cleared of contempt, and Pittston Coal is concerned about a union move to avoid heavy fines in a state court. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports on today's developments.
Judge Glenn Williams sent the group of miners home innocent of contempt, telling them it's hard to believe they didn't know when they were arrested on the picket line in late May about his orders banning mass picketing and blocking access to Pittston operations. But still, he accepted their sworn testimony they didn't know.
Nobody was made aware of it before it happened. We have all respect for the judge's orders, and
Go back home and go to work now.
yeah, we'll obey it.
Judge Williams will decide Friday whether to sanction the union's effort to consolidate federal and state court injunctive action against the union. Pittston attorneys are protesting, saying the union's next move would be to try to get dissolved. The state court injunction calling for millions of dollars in fines against the union. In Abingdon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
Continue between United Mine Workers President Rich Trumka and Pittston Coal head Mike Odom. News Center 5's John Mongol reports on this and other strike developments.
Sympathy strikes are being reported in Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, and Tennessee. But during a nationally televised interview on the Today Show, Trumka says they are not sanctioned.
The union's not authorized nor called a nationwide strike or any of the strikes that are occurring right now.
Today Show producers had intended to have Pittston Coal President Mike Odom on with Trumka this morning, but a communications mix-up between the network and Odom prevented that. However, Odom did have some comments to respond to the union president's comments on national TV.
Mr. Trumka is clearly directing this nationwide strike. He called for it in Charleston. He had meetings in Charleston.
Trumka also called U.S. District Court Judge Glenn Williams' potential fines against the union a financial death warrant for the UMW.
He's also jailed 3 of our members indefinitely for participating in peaceful sit-down strikes. And I think miners throughout the country feel that the economic death warrant that the judge from Virginia issued against us warrants their protests, and I believe that's why they're out.
Trumka says Pittston is engaging in what he calls a classic case of union busting, but Odom says union jobs are guaranteed in the company's latest offer.
I'm not going to sit here and rebut irresponsible statements. We're the ones who address the union's concerns. We're the ones who gave new proposals that move toward the union's needs. The facts are, they never made one proposal.
Another point of disagreement is negotiation. Pittston declared an impasse shortly after the union left the bargaining table 2 weeks ago.
We are still negotiating, and we are still very, very unified, and hopefully we'll be able to find a settlement for this strike.
We're definitely at a legal impasse, and further bargaining is futile. We will not be bargaining with the union.
John Mongol, News Center 5.
7,000 coal miners in 9 states have walked off their jobs in sympathy with the Pittston miners. As News Center 5's Jim Conrad reports, the Mine Workers Union shut down Pittston's only active mine in Kentucky today.
All 3 mines of Pittston's Eastern Coal Company and a coal preparation plant were idle today. The strike began at 12:01 this morning.
Our membership received that order with open arms. They were pleased to be given the privilege to come out on the strike line and to assist our brothers across the border in both West Virginia and Virginia.
8 people were arrested after union sympathizers snarled commuter traffic headed into Washington, D.C. this morning. Protesters traveled 2 and 3 cars abreast at speeds of 5 miles per hour on Interstate 95 and other roads headed into the nation's capital.
The message we're trying to bring here, well, we're not necessarily trying to bring a message to the people. We're trying to bring a message to the government, you know, to have a little bit of respect for the working people of this country. That's about, you know, the bottom line of it.
Jim Conrad, News Center 5.
Cleared themselves. As News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell reports, they did it by appearing before a federal judge requesting a private meeting instead of an open court hearing.
All they had to do was say they would obey the order, and not be having other people to disobey the order, and they wouldn't have gone to jail in the first place.
And that's all strike leaders Marty Hudson, Jackie Stump, and C.A. Phillips did to gain freedom from jail after a 2-week stay that's left them with mixed feelings.
It's not good to be locked up. It's not good to be in an institution. But it's worse to be locked up when you don't feel like you've done anything. I mean, it's harder to understand, and it's harder to take.
I feel stronger than I've ever been, and, you know, I'm going to pass that on to all the people.
Supporters gave the trio an affectionate homecoming outside the courthouse. Inside, Judge Williams had been flooded with mail, urging him to release the strike leaders. The letters came from the Mine Workers Union, other unions, and even one came from Marty Hudson's mother-in-law. The judge says the public outcry wasn't unexpected.
Oh, this is a very highly emotional matter, and it's not unusual on something this emotional and with the feelings that people have to receive mail.
Did it have any bearing on your decision?
No, of course, I don't ignore it. I read my mail and so forth, but I have to arrive at decisions based on what I think's right and wrong rather than public pressure.
This doesn't end federal court contempt cases. Another group of 75 union members are scheduled to appear in court Wednesday, and new complaints of contemptuous conduct in the strike are being reported. In Abingdon, Virginia, Lisa Mitchell.
A federal judge has issued a back-to-work order against the UMW to try to stop a wildcat walkout that's now spread to 9 states. Several hundred of the 27,000 miners involved in the wildcat strike are showing up in Southwest Virginia. They're staying at a Solidarity camp in Russell County, 10 acres of property owned by a Pittston miner.
We've got people in here from Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and they're having a ball.
The out-of-state miners also include some who have been laid off at other companies. Union officials say the wildcat walkouts outside the area is part of the union's economic warfare against the Pittston Coal group. Officials say shutting down other companies with sympathy walkouts is working to put economic pressure on Pittston.
We have information that would lead us to believe that the Japanese are upset with them. The other coal companies in the industry are upset with them.
It's absolutely not true. I've not had one phone call from another coal company putting pressure on us with regard to the strike.
Odom says local and out-of-state miners are using rolling roadblocks on coal roads, and that is slowing production.